Shalom. We are back with this master work of Rabbi Nachman, and we are in Likutei Tinyana. Hey, we are in the 15th paragraph, 15th chapter, 2 paragraphs down. It begins, Kisheniteken hamoach bechinat Moshe. When we repair the mind to the aspect of Moses. Now, before we talk about the repair of the mind, I want to bless everybody with the refuah shalema to recover from the Israeli elections, because from what I saw, the entire nation could only talk politics for several days. And after a while, how much can you take, right? So there was this aspect of, shall we say, there was a unity of speech, certainly, that everybody was talking about politics. Now, can you imagine if everybody was talking about God? Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? And we could, that we would actually elevate our consciousness together instead of just talking about all the wars between the different parties and the factions and their different platforms. But nonetheless, it's part of the necessary reality of democracy. But here we're going to have an idea today that is quite amazing, that there's a level in a person where to receive a new mind, I first have to remove the old one. Now, what does it mean to receive a new mind? What does it mean to remove an old one? Essentially, we're talking about our present knowledge of God in the world and above the world. And so the Rebbe begins to tell us this idea of the mind of Moses is the idea of tefillin. We've been working with this idea for a long time, that tefillin is the perfection of the mind. And he goes on to tell us, and so therefore also, when Moses died, remember, he left the Jews in the desert, and he went up to Har Nebo, and he didn't come back. When he died, this is a metaphor for when our higher self-mind leaves us. When the higher self-mind leaves us, we return to something else. We lose that expanded vision. We lose that love in the heart for the world and for life. When the idea of Moses is this idea of this upper consciousness, which is the tefillin, when that leaves, we lose a part of ourselves. And it leaves us perhaps a little empty. And certainly, when Moses passed away, the Jewish people were terrified. And they didn't know what to do. Now, of course, they had a leader appointed, Yeshua ben Nun. Joshua was appointed by Moses. But when you have a leader like Moses, for 40 years, it's a little hard when he leaves. In a tiny microcosmic way, when we lose that expanded consciousness, we become that place where something great was, but now it's gone. Now, this can be very frustrating in spiritual service because we work hard and then we receive this new light and we feel good and we have a renewal of self and of joy. Wonderful. But when it's gone, all of a sudden, like, what happened? Where's God? Where's the love? Where's the awe? Where's the beauty? So this is an aspect of Histalkut Moshe, the leaving of Moses, which Histalkut is a nice word for dying. It means going up, literally. But there is hope. There is hope at the end of this. Azai gam arishima shnishar shehi bechinit shena. There is an impression left in the brain of what had happened before. I remember when I first saw the Lubavitcher Rebbe, it was an amazing moment. A few days later, the moment was just an impression in my brain, a memory, if you will. But that rishima, which in Hebrew is like a memory, it literally means an impression, is an aspect of sleep, of shena. Vehi tova gam kein meod, But the Rebbe says this impression, even though it's not the real item, it's still very good. Why? It's an aspect of mituka shenat ha'oved. It's an idea of the phrase of our rabbis that the sleep of a worker is sweet. That someone who works all day, when he goes to sleep, it's a very sweet sleep. He's not going to bed with 1,000 thoughts running through his mind and he can't close his eyes, and even when he does, his mind is cycling. No, the sleep of a worker is sweet. And this idea of sweet sleep is the idea of this impression left behind. So that when I lose that high expanded consciousness, and I feel like I've fallen asleep, there's still something sweet there. And he says the Rosh Tevot of Moshe, the first letters, the notricon of the name Moshe, Mem, Shin, He, is this verse, Mituka Shena Ha'oved. The sweetness is the sleep of the worker. Now, if the Oved is Moses, which he was, the Eved Hashem, and he passed away, and sleep is a metaphor for passing away, and Mituka is sweet. So Moses is this embodied in the first letters of this verse. The death of Moses is even embodied in the first letters of this verse, the Rebbe finds for us. And therefore, we understand that it's not a bad thing necessarily. It has to be part of reality that even our great leaders leave us, and we have to stand on our own sometimes. Okay, so he goes on to tell us, so sometimes the Rav loses his expanded consciousness. Right? His moach, his mind, goes up, and he's left in a lower state. And so too by the students. There are times where the students lose that ability that they had moments before or days before, whatever it might be. Their mindset has gone down. And the Rebbe gives us the basic principle that our mental ability is never fixed in one place. Our mental ability is going up and down. Again, there are swings in the wave of expanded and contracted consciousness. But what we need to remember, if you watch my hand, even though there's ups and downs, the general direction is still up. And we have to remember that because that's why we're here. It's not a flatline experience. We're still going up, even though we've come down a little bit to this other level. Again, when the mind goes up, it's the idea of the death of Moses. The higher mind has left us. And that's the mindset of like a person who's asleep. When you're not really your best self, when you're not really on your game, when you have yet to access that new mindset. Now, but when we fix our minds through sitting and learning with a rabbi, with a good teacher, then even when we are in the smaller place, when we are in the aspect of sleep, then still this level of the smaller mindedness can still be sweet, and it is good for us, like the sweet sleep of the worker. Because when we fix our mind, which is the aspect of Moses, which is the aspect of the tefillin, then we also fix our sleep. And remember, at the beginning of this Torah, we were learning about the mind, when we go to sleep, will determine the types of dreams that we have. The holy dreams that can be prophetic, or the unholy dreams that can drive us crazy. Okay? Bechinat halom aidei malach, and that is the idea of the dream that comes to us through a holy angel. V'zeu mituka shenat oved, and this is another idea of the sweet sleep of the servant. The servant of God is sweet. The sleep of the servant of God is sweet because he gets visited by angels. in his dreams. Now, he might not know it, and the angels are not going to announce themselves, by the way. They usually appear in disguised forms. And so part of the wisdom of dream interpretation is how to interpret the costumes, the images that the information appear in. Okay, and this is a big work. This takes some time and some effort, but it is something that is not beyond our understanding and our reach. You know, when I took a literature class in high school, they would tell us about the symbols of this book. The scarlet letter, what does that mean? And what does the little sled mean in Orson Welles' famous movie Citizen Kane? And what are all these symbols? Literature is full of symbols. So literature is teaching us how to read symbols. Well, what's the difference here? Is that we're attributing the symbols to a higher source than simply the author of a book. We're attributing the symbols either to this holy angel that comes to the repair of the mind, or the unholy one, which, is the one that comes through, we learned, through the thoughts of the day, through the food and the gases of digesting food that rise to the brain, etc. All right. Mituka now, daika. He uses the word mituka, sweet, are the dreams of the servant. Daika, he says specifically the word matok, sweet, bechinat min mitikin. Min mitikin. That is, sweet also refers to the phrase of sweet waters. Now, sweet waters is a famous verse in English, and of course it comes from the Torah, from the Hebrew, that Mayim genuvim matok, that the stolen waters are sweet. Now the rabbis explain that in many different ways, and some of them are not so good. But there is something sweet about that. He's going to explain, Bichinat tikun abrit shehu bichinat my mitukin. So when a person has a tikkun of his sexual urge, that's when he tastes that true sweetness, the sweetness of Torah, the sweetness of prayer, and the sweetness of service, in divine service in general. Okay, so it all comes back to that level of repairing that urge and keeping it in the right place and time. The hefech begama brit, and the opposite is also true. God forbid, when a person has a moment where he breaks the covenant, however it happens, bechinat mai miririn. That's the idea of bitter water. Now, everybody, I think, knows that when there are sexual events that are not holy, the aftermath is not too nice. It's pretty bitter. And it brings a person down. And a person feels sad and depressed and lost and disconnected. Well, that's the bitter water. And shehu bechinat pagam et tuma. And this is an aspect, the Rebbe says, of the defect and impurity. This impurity is the bitterness itself. Aval. But through the fixing of our mind, and then, of course, when we have the sweet sleep, then we return to the mai mitukim, the sweet water, which is the covenant. So there's an important point here we can't forget. That the bitterness of sin is actually Hashem's way of pushing us back in the right direction. It is not a punishment. It is a redirection. It is a refocus. And so when we have negative feelings, it is not that Hashem is being mean to us, that God is this old, crotchety king far away in heaven that sends down punishments on human beings. Rather, the bitterness, the negativity that we have to face in this world, They're only coming to redirect us, to help us focus and get back to that. B'kol darachei ha'de'ehu. In all your way, know him means that even when the way is bitter, know him. Know him. Because he's the one who's helping us get back to him. And sometimes we need a little bit of that bitterness to remind me, I don't want to be here. I don't want to see that. I don't want to do that. Ever again. And when we get that strength is actually coming from the bitterness. So you see that it's still positive and it's not negative. And this is something that does not let us go, you know. It's going to be there whether we like it or not. There's no such thing as an all sweet life. And I don't think there's anything as an all bitter life. You know, the classic story is, again, Job. That Job was the wealthiest man in the East, and he had more of everything than anybody. And then he lost it all, and he went through the most difficult test of bitterness that anybody could go through, and he stuck it out, and God gave him everything back double. Okay, so when you go through the bitterness, we need to keep in mind that if I can get through this bitterness, it's going to get a lot better than it was before. So that's something that we need to constantly remember when things don't look so nice and things are difficult and we get in arguments and we get angry and we get in that constricted mind space. That I have to know that this constricted mind space is only coming to me to bring me to a greater expansion. So this is something that I hope we take to heart, and we have to remember it and repeat it over and over, because, you know, every morning when we wake up, we're new again. And it's like we're starting to learn the Torah over again. And everything we've learned and read and tried to integrate into our lives from before, we have to start again. And so when we know that we're starting again, well, this is a good place to start. That no matter what happens, from the time we get up to the time we go to bed, this life that we are living is this wave going up and down, but climbing the mountain of God. So I want to bless everybody with a good memory to remember that this whole world is only a prose door. It's only a corridor to a much greater experience that is coming to us. I want to say hello to David and to Mordechai, to our other friends, and look forward to seeing you again tomorrow here on the Chabura of Nar Shalom. And have a great day, and we'll be in touch with everyone as we continue this wonderful process approaching Pesach. All the best. God bless all of you.